Hi guys, and welcome to this video. This is going to be a set of videos about Material UI. So recently I started working with Material UI. I was working on migration of an old product into Material UI, and so I learned a lot of things, and I'd like to share some of my experience. And so the first thing I'd like to go over is what is Material UI and what does it do, who uses it, and then I'll show you an example of it and an installation and how to get it installed on your device. After that, I'll have a set of videos to go over different things. I was thinking of adding everything under the same video, but I think that would be way too long. And so as you can see from the description, Material UI is basically a React UI framework. It allows us to import components and display the components on our pages. The cool thing is everything comes already done, so everything comes shipped. And the reason you would use Material UI is because everything looks amazing, styled. Most of the things are already responsive. You would have unified look across your website, so you don't need to worry about 1 pixel short here or 10 pixels short there. You could use one of the things that Material UI provides called the theme to style and space out your elements so that everything looks exactly identical and looks and feels the same in a way. So like I said, it's a React UI framework, which means the components are actually React components, which means to use them, we would use them inside our React applications. So looking down here at this example they're giving us, button is imported from Material UI core, which is the package where we get our components, our main components. There is other packages, but this is the main components you would actually work with and you would need. And you can see here it's a component and we're passing in a prop color and we're telling it it's going to be primary. So it's very easy. It's as easy as this. But obviously there's other things that can be done and other properties or props can be passed to change the look and feel of the button, to style it differently. And it's not just buttons, so it provides a lot of things for us. So we don't have to build them from scratch. And so if I was to look at who's using them, or who's using Material UI, you can see big companies are already using that. So like NASA, Netflix, Amazon. So you can tell it's a very, very popular framework. And I'm going to show you how to work with it and how to get started. So let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try and open a VS Code right here. Actually, all right. And I'm going to try and create a Create React application from scratch. So to create one, I would use the npx command. Npx, actually first, I want to go to my desktop, cd desktop. Yep. And in here, I want to say npx create react app. And I'm going to give it a name, material knowledge. And I'm going to hit enter. I just need to wait for it. Actually, I need to increase the size of this so you guys can see. Okay, that took a bit of time, but we have our application or our project installed, and now we can start working on it. So I'm going to open it. So I'm going to say code, and I believe we called it material knowledge. There we go. And so it opened it up. I believe it opened it up, did it? Oops, code. Let me check here. Let me open it through the open folder. These are just different projects, guys. So, Webpack, material knowledge. I'm going to open that and click on don't save. And so I opened up the project, and as you can see, if I already have node modules installed, so all I need to do is yarn start to start up the project. And I'm actually going to copy that and just open it in a different tab. Just open it here to keep everything together. As you can see, our Create React application is running perfectly. And so I'm not going to do any cleaning up or anything here, but I want to show you how we start by using our Material UI. And so if we go back to the actual materialui.com website, it gives us an example of how to install it and how to use it. So the first thing we need to do is npm install Material Ui, and then we need to have this so that we have, this CDN link in our head section so that we can have access to the font, and when our components render, they are given the font family Roboto, and so that it won't complain or give us any errors or anything like that. Obviously, you can change your font family as well, but this is more kind of, we're trying to keep it very basic, and then we'll move on to different things as we progress. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to open up another terminal here, and I'm going to paste what I installed, or paste what I copied. In this case, I'm actually going to change to Yarn because I've been using Yarn for the past year or so, so I prefer that now. Even though there is not much difference at this point, but I just prefer this. Oopsie. So we don't use install with Yarn. Instead, we use add. So Yarn add, and that will add everything to us. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this because it's taking up space. And I'm going to increase the size of the window. And so we have our dependency installed. If we look here, you can see that it installed Material UI Core as our dependency. Right now, we're not going to see any changes because we haven't implemented any components. But let's copy this example, and let's go to app.js, for example. And I'm going to get rid of from here, and I'm going to go all the way here. So in here, I'm going to post import button from Material UI Core. Okay, and this is the simplest example, and I'm going to basically do this, a rerun. We probably see a button but with no text, or it might complain. Let's open the developer tools. Okay, let's see if there's a button here. Okay, so we can see a button is already, and if rendered, and we can click it. Now, to give it a text, as you can see here, we have an opening and a closing component. So close it, and in here I can say click me, and I could give it a color, but right now without a color, without giving it a color, it's transparent almost. So as you can see, it already looks much better, but let's make it even much better. So I'm going to come back here and say color primary and save that and go back to my React component. You can see the color is already changed. You can do a lot of things. So in order for me to figure out what props are associated with this button and what CSS stuff I can modify, I'll open up another tab and I'll go to Material UI button, or even Even better, I'll open up the same kind of link and I'm going to search here for the button component. And in here is going to give me a list of things that I want to go through. But I want to go directly to the button, so I'm going to click on the button link. And in here is going to give us information about the buttons, what they do, and the different options or different type of buttons that can be used. So I could, change it using the variant, and that will change the color and the way it is presented to us. We could have, like I did earlier, we could have buttons with no background, and we could have buttons with borders, and could have a lot of different things. In order to figure out what properties or how, for example, this button is styled or why it's looking like this, they're going to give you a snippet of what they've done. But also, if you click here, it will show you the full source of the component, and it should show you how it's been styled as well, which is something we will get into as we progress. Let's say I wanted to change the background of the button or change the way it looks. So in this case, we use the variant. If I go down to the end of the page and under API, you can see there's a button. If I click on it, it's going to give me a list of all the props that I can use to apply on the button. And in here it tells us there's different ways of importing the button component, and it tells us that the MUI button name can be used for providing default props or style overrides at the theme level. But we don't need this. This is another thing we'll get into at some point. The main things that you want to look at is the props. And these are props that we can pass on the button to do various things. So I could change the width, I could set the size of it, and I could add an icon to it. Variant is the way it looks, so it's either contained, means fully background, and outlined is just, I believe outlined is like a border around it. But let's do some changes here. So we already have primary color. So in this case, I'm going to say variant, yep. And I'm going to say maybe, let's have a look back here. It tells us that it's only text by default. So I'm going to say it's contained. So if I was to save and go back here, you can tell that the background is now changed. So it's looking much, much better. I'll just get rid of this a bit. And if I change this to a white background, maybe. Oopsie. Oh yeah, I think I have a dark mode on this. Yeah. So as you can see here, we already have our button, and it's looking much, much better than before. Let's say I want to change the size of it. So I would go back here and look at the prop to change the size. And I find it, okay, size. I look at the options or the types that can be passed to it, and it tells me it's either large, medium, or small. And by default, it is using the medium type. And on the right, it gives you some information about how this can be used and what it does. And so I'll come back here and do size, large, and I'm going to save it. I'm going to go back and we just wait for it to take effect. Let me open up my DevTools. And as you can see, if I was to inspect the element, it gives you a list of all the classes that got applied to this button. But you don't need to worry about this for now. This is only to show you that our size has been applied. In the upcoming videos, we will look at how we use this to style the component and how we can use different ways of styling these components. So I want to do more things working on this button. So one of the things that you can do is you can pass components to it. So inside it, you could change the component from button to, let's say, a div. So I could say, if I don't want to be using a button, but I'm using the button component, I want to say I want to use a div. So I want the div to be rendered instead of a button. Then I would just pass it in component and I'd say div. And if we look down here now, we still have a button, but this time the element that gets rendered is actually a div. So many good things that you can do, customize, modify when it comes to Material UI. So under this, under the props, it gives you all the CSS classes that gets applied on the button. So it tells you that when we use the contained prop, this style gets applied on the button. And in here it explains to you that style applied to the root element if variant is contained. And so we already using the contained prop. So let's go back and inspect what does the contained MUI button contained do. As we look here, we have MUI button contained size large, MUI button contained primary, and MUI button contained. And this is what we are looking for. So when we set the contained prop here on this button, this class gets applied to the button. And what it does is it sets the color, the box shadow, and the background color, which we then override with our prop to change the color, which is the color primary. This will become very clear when it comes to styling these components, because there are different ways of styling them, and sometimes it's a bit hard to style them if you don't understand the basic of how these things work. So I'm going to try my best to keep this short and clear and descriptive so that in every video you watch, you'll get something and it builds up your knowledge in Material UI. For now, I just wanted to show you all these. I've given you an example of the classes, I've given you examples of buttons, and I've given you examples of the props and how they can be used to change the look and feel of the buttons. And in the next video, we will be going through different examples and building an actual page and going through everything that needs to be learned. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.